Good evening, everyone in Spanish United. How are you? This is Enrique. Tonight I have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, everybody. This is Rick Santiago.
Perfect. Can you say, well, what is your occupation, where you're from, so that way people know a little bit about you?
Oh, well, I'm a retired truck driver of 24 years. I started my own dispatch company. I live in the East Coast and Puerto Rican and American, and I tend to cause trouble and it always turns into a positive. That's what I'll say about myself.
That's awesome. I really am honored to have you on the show. So, I
I
was
appreciate it.
actually I was actually introduced to you by one of my administrators. So she gave me your number, and that's how we got connected. So, today I wanted to talk about Latinos, Hispanics, and the trucking industry. So, can you explain a little bit of how it's affecting in general?
Well, I can tell you that Latinos are the single most hardest working men and women that I know. And I'm not being biased. It's a fact. With that being said, I believe that Latinos' main and only agenda is to provide for their family and just go home in peace.
Mhm.
And the Rogel Mederos situation, that it was anything but that. Um, this young man was set up to fail, and it starts with our federal government all the way down to our state governments. Uh,
Mhm.
Latinos are looked. I will say this: Latinos are looked down on the totem pole as truck drivers as the lowest of the low. We do the cheap work. We take cheap freight, and I got to tell you, from a professional standpoint, that's completely untrue.
Mhm.
On a personal standpoint, anybody who makes those claims, those are just keyboard warriors. That's all I'll
Right.
say.
Right. That's unfortunately that is a major issue today. But yeah, I thought it was very sad what happened to Rohel because I thought it was very harsh. Not even people that do horrible crimes do that type of time that they gave him. But luckily they gave him clemency. But still, I thought the
It
outcome
wasn't
was.
clemency. It wasn't clemency. The governor commuted his sentence. There's a
Oh,
big difference.
commuted. Okay, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, but still, I thought, when they gave him the original sentence, I thought it was way too harsh. It's like that's the first time I heard anyone
well,
for intentional manslaughter.
they overcharged him. Number one. Number two, I've spoken directly to Rohel's attorney. The jury was in the first when they did their jury pool out of 250
No,
out of
go
200
ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
out of 250 people, they dismissed 80 the first day because they had already formed a guilty opinion about it. So he had an unfair trial to start.
Hmm.
Uh, what I can tell you is the reason why the governor reduced his sentence was for a number of reasons, but number one, political. There was too much pressure on him.
Hmm.
Number two, he knew we were coming. I was on Fox News, and he knew that we were coming, and we were coming by the thousands. I was getting the numbers today. There was thousands of people that were going to show up that signed this petition for him. So a wrong was corrected.
Hmm.
But let me explain something about Latinos.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're too honest. And this is what I want to get out to your audience as Latinos, young men, young women. When it comes to law enforcement, there's this old saying: you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Okay, those are your Miranda rights. Latinos, if they believe they did nothing wrong, they're going to talk because they want to clear their name.
Right.
And nowhere in your Miranda rights does it state anything you say can and will be used to help you. In Rogel's case, he was so honest that he kind of got himself in a lot of trouble by being honest. And that's the thing: when people come to this country, they're not really familiar with the laws of the land that do protect the citizens. They're not really familiar with the United States Constitution.
Hmm.
They they really need to, as Latinos, again, our main agenda, we want to support our family and move on, go back home in peace. We're
Hmm.
picked on. I don't want to say America is racist. What I will say is we are looked down on the totem pole. There's other people that feel that they are more supreme than us.
Hmm. It's
What
true.
I can tell you is get familiar with your Constitution. Do not speak to law enforcement for anything. That is my point. Like I told you prior, you're the first one hearing this out of my mouth
Hmm.
because nobody understands how the Constitution works. He was so honest. He was brutally honest because in his heart, he felt like he had done nothing wrong, that he got himself charged with so many charges. That's what
Hmm.
led that's what led to a decade and a century behind bars.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now,
that's true.
so that way the Latino so that way the Latino community understands is when he was sentenced to 110 years, and that prosecutor used a brake pad as a memento that shows the Latino community and every community of color that the criminal justice system is not about justice. It's about how many years we can put you in prison.
Hmm. Yeah, because I know that when it comes to the system, especially that when the prisons are private, they have to, fill like so many quotas. So
Right.
unfortunately, the prosecutors, their job is, on the books to execute justice. But unfortunately, prosecutors have made it to be that if I get so many convictions, I will get, promotions, I will move up. And the problem is that they're harming a lot of people. So I think in general, it just exposed that the system in general, not only has its flaws, but it's very imperfect. And I just feel that there needs to be reforms when it comes to the judicial system, and there needs to be more transparency, more accountability. And
Right.
I just believe that, like you said, Rahel was a victim of of a flawed system, and it
Now,
just it was a sad thing.
Rohel is now the symbol for change
Hmm.
because here's what's going to happen. In a week, everybody's going to forget about Rohel. Everybody's going to forget about an accident in Colorado.
Hmm.
Okay. In a week, it's all forgotten. If you want reform for the Latinos that will come to this country to drive a truck, now is the time to push for it.
Hmm.
Insist that you as a new driver get better training. You insist to learn English to drive a truck because if that's what the law states, we have to abide by the laws.
Right. I think it's very important that English is emphasized because it's common sense. It's like if people don't know English, how are they going to read the signs?
Right.
You know. But I just think that it's insane, the whole outcome. But I do believe that as time goes on, and I think Rahel being a symbol of reform. I think when people agitate and lobby for change, I think the system over time will be reformed, and there will be an overhaul. But as with anything, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time.
Right. Well, but you can't let the news die down. I'm staging a different rally January 10th in front of the United States Department of Transportation, demanding reform and enforcement.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's nice. I think you're doing something very commendable.
Well, everybody's going to benefit from this. Fellow truckers on the road will be more confident knowing that the driver next to them is qualified to drive. People going home from work or people coming home from church won't have to really worry about a truck driver with no experience behind the wheel. This is not over by any means.
Okay, I agree with you. And I also wanted to ask you, who was the one that introduced you to Spanish United? I wanted to ask.
I believe his name was Eric. Not really sure. I talk to a lot of people every day.
Okay. And what do you think of Spanish United of the platform when you joined?
Well, I think anything united is a good thing. But me as a Latino, we can get more. And again, I hate to say this, but this is a fact. I believe that the 5 million signatures that Rogel got was predominantly Latino. With that being said, we got a governor to basically take time off of our brother's sentence without burning one single business down,
Hmm.
without one looting, without one person arrested over this. Not one in support of him has been arrested.
Hmm.
That should tell you something. There's a proper way to do it, and we did it the right way. This is the only way to get things done in a very short amount of time.
Hmm. And that's one thing that I emphasize with people and my members of the group is that one thing is to protest, one thing is to vandalize. Protest doesn't mean that one has a right to destroy people's property or to cause physical harm because that does the opposite. And I think that it shows the difference between Hispanics and other communities that we can get our voice across without having to resort to violence. So I think what they did in Colorado was a phenomenal thing. It actually gave a good example that Hispanic people can protest without having to cause trouble or having to get arrested. So I think it did the job that it was supposed to do.
Well, in all fairness to all communities, this can be done, a fair way, regardless of any community you may belong to. That's the problem, in my opinion. That's the problem with today's society is we have become segregated. We are not the United States of America. We are the divided states of America. Uh, there's too much your community here, your community there. It's going on so long. This is what we're accustomed to, but the truth is we're all one and the same.
That's true. We may come from different backgrounds, but we share similar struggles, maybe more than others. But we have our own issues. That not all issues are the same. One community might have a little bit different, but they're all going to the same thing in different ways.
Well, I can tell you one community. Here's where your uh, podcast will be a little funny. I can tell you that one community suffers from affluenza. Affluenza has been defined as you're so rich you don't know right from wrong. So one community is affluenza, and I guess the all of us suffer from brokelepsy. Okay.
Right. I think I know who you're talking about, but yes, I
Right,
definitely agree.
right, right. And it's very sad, but on to get back to you, Latinos have already been pegged uh, and have already been stereotyped even before they get it. Okay,
That's
so
true.
once they're here, whether they do it legally or they don't, they're considered illegal regardless. The
Mhm.
first assumption, if a Latino is accused of anything, is deported,
Right.
and that's the biggest narrative that's out there. That unfortunately, it'll never go away. It'll never go away. So in my I deal with it regardless if I was on Fox, regardless if I met with Vice President Mike Pence, regardless. I'll go to somewhere in Alabama and I'll be considered a Mexican across here legal.
Right.
That's the society we live in. And unfortunately we're gonna have to dust it off and just keep on moving with our heads held up high.
Mm. That's all we can do. And I think that another way to combat stereotypes is one through education, and number two, the way a person behaves and acts, has a lot to do with it. Because again, a lot of stereotypes has to do by what people assume what you are. But if people just behave and are in a way that's the opposite and is educated, that could also do a lot. Because that's the same thing happened with me when I used to live in the Midwest. I used to live Michigan and Missouri, and that's very, very Caucasian over there. I experience a lot of prejudice myself, and I'm not even dark. I'm fairly light complected, but anyone that has black hair or doesn't look like a wasp, they see them differently. But I combat the prejudice through the way that I speak, the way that I'm educated, and it helped a lot to turn a lot of heads. So I think that the way people present themselves to others and also getting educated can a lot to do to dispel prejudice.
Right. Well, I would like to just, pretty much sum this up with, Latinos again. We we have a promising land, but
Mhm.
you need to understand how this country is very biased at times, and learn to never speak to the police ever. Rogel and Mederos is a prime example of why you should never speak to the police, even if you're honest. You're so honest that sometimes they'll find the smallest little mistake in your honesty and turn it around and get you sentenced to a decade and a century behind bars.
That's true. Very true indeed. All right, Rick. Thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. When I'm done, I will email you and text you the link.
Not a problem. Thanks, pal.
Have yourself a wonderful evening.
You too.
Bye bye.